Hi everyone, this is Catherine Korostoff from Research Rockstar. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'd like to talk about an important option that we as researchers have available to us today to really amp up our survey data. The reality is that today, when we're doing surveys, we can append our survey data sets with other data sets. Now, if you're an experienced market researcher, you may have done this in the past. You might be saying, Catherine, I've done this before. This is not new. Well, in the past, when we appended data, very often what we were doing was actually combining survey data sets. So maybe we did two surveys with the same customer group and have enough overlap in the respondents, and of course we have their ID information so that we can match up their responses. That way maybe we take a survey about customer satisfaction and combine it with the survey data from surveys with the same customers about maybe their product requirements or their brand perceptions. So that's something we have been doing in market research for a long time. But these days we have access to a lot of internal data sets that can also be used to append survey data. Now, some of you may work in a market research or customer insights group that doesn't intersect frequently with the customer data folks. So you may have a separate group that collects customer data. Maybe if your organization has an e-commerce site or if your organization has loyalty card information or other types of customer purchase data databases. Even if you don't normally work with your colleagues in those other groups, this is an awesome opportunity for you to collaborate with them. And the truth is that I am seeing more of this collaboration in different ways in many organizations. So that is, we're often seeing organizations where the market research or customer insights team is working increasingly in combination with people from other data-oriented parts of a company. Indeed, in some organizations, the different groups that may have previously been siloed are actually now being integrated. So it's not uncommon now to have a team or a department where you have people coming both from a traditional sort of market research, customer insights background, as well as more of the traditional sort of customer analytics, data analytics background, all in one group. So what do I mean when I say appending data with actual customer data? Well, let's take a look at some examples. One of the things that's really exciting for us is that we can now combine our survey data with behavioral data. And this is a great way for us to look at differences between people's sort of attitudes and self-reported needs with actual behavioral data. One of the things that we've learned in market research over many years is that there can be a really big difference between how people perceive themselves and how they actually behave. That is, I might tell you in a survey that I exercise 3 times a week, but if you had my actual behavioral data, you'd find that I exercise twice a week, if that. So having that option to collect actual behavioral data and append it to my survey data can be really exciting. Let's look at a few examples. Let's imagine that you are doing a survey about brand perceptions. Brand perception research is really helpful, and that's something that has to be self-reported, right? We can't observe somebody and conclude how they perceive the brand. So we want to get people to self-report their brand perceptions. Maybe we're looking for brand personality attributes, friendliness, values their customers, is innovative. You know, maybe there's certain attributes that we want to own as a brand. Well, that's okay, that's cool, but now maybe we want to see whether or not there's a relationship between those brand perceptions that people are self-reporting and their actual purchase behavior. Maybe just what brands they're buying from or what model of a product they're buying. There can be very interesting combinations. Let's say, for example, you've got somebody who's reporting that being innovative is really important. You know, they really want, let's say we're talking about the category of laptop computers. They really like an innovative brand. They like companies that are always pushing the envelope and doing really cool new things. But then what if we looked at their purchasing data and find that they actually typically buy the no frills models? Knowing that there's a difference between perceptions and actual purchase behavior can be very insightful. It doesn't mean that the data that is being self-reported is wrong, but we have to understand that there may be a very small or a very big gap between self-reported, what's important, and what they actually buy. Similarly, we can do a survey about product selection criteria. Now, which of the following attributes are most important to you when selecting a cell phone plan? Awesome. Very classic type of market research study to do. But then which cell phone plan are people actually purchasing? So if they're saying, well, I'm really a heavy data user, and that's really something that's important to me. Well, are they currently on a heavy data plan? Do we know whether their data usage is in fact high? Again, there can be a really big gap between what people perceive themselves in terms of how they buy products and then indeed how they actually buy products. Part of this is that in a survey, when we ask people for something like purchase criteria, they tend to over rationalize it. They don't tend to sort of admit to themselves or in a survey that actually their selection criteria for an actual purchase might be more swayed by brand or a promotion. So we need to understand that sometimes. Another thing that I think is really cool, and I've seen this done in real life, is when appended data has been used to look at responses by sales channel. So for example, you might be doing a survey about customer loyalty, asking people different loyalty measures. Maybe it is a net promoter score kind of thing, or maybe you're asking people about plans to renew magazine subscriptions. So you're asking people about actual behavior. Wouldn't it be interesting if you could look at whether or not that planned renewal varies by how they actually purchased? Did they purchase your service through a retail site, through a telephone order, through an online order? Is there variation in their loyalty by how they actually purchase your service? And that's something where you might be saying, why don't I just ask them in the survey? Why don't I just ask people in a survey how they purchased our cell phone service or our magazine? You'd be surprised. People don't always recall these things perfectly. And so if we can have the actual data, that is going to be much more accurate. If I know for a fact customer record number X is reporting plans to, is reporting a certain level of loyalty, and I know for a fact that they purchased online, that can be potentially very interesting to me. So in many cases, when we work with appended data, in the past we were combining survey sets. So the data sets from multiple surveys could be carefully combined. But now we have other databases internal to the organization, and we can use that to make sure that we are looking at gaps between what people say and what they actually do, but we can also look at it for the purposes of making predictions too. So we can look at the different variables we're getting about actual purchases to see whether or not certain behaviors or certain attitudes are indeed predicting certain behaviors over time. And if you want to get really fancy, there's some really cool ways you might even create new variables. So you might take some of your existing variables from a survey and some of the new variables from appended data to create new variables. So very often you'll have a situation where you want to use a compute variable. So take the value of variable A and combine it somehow. Maybe it's an average or some sort of equation that you're using with variable B to create a new variable. So that can be exciting too. The bottom line is that these days in market research, we don't have to over-rely on survey data. We can take our wonderful survey data, which is a great source of getting people to self-report attitudes, their sources of pain, their motivations, their aspirations, their whys, but then combine it with actual behavioral data. Because we've learned that asking people to self-report behavioral data can be problematic. So if we can collect the actual data, that is awesome. Of course, all of this does require planning ahead, because you have to be super careful about this, right? You don't want to mismatch records. So do plan ahead. If you're planning a project today that you think you might want to use appended data with, make sure that you plan ahead for that so that you'll be able to match the records correctly. So you might have to talk to your clients or to your colleagues in the other functional areas to make sure that you can do that. I hope this has been an interesting idea for you, and I welcome further conversation about working with appended data. If you have examples that you would like to share with your peers and fellow research rock stars, please do post them here, and that would be fantastic. Here's my contact information if you'd like to continue the conversation. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.